It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games. Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Nobody brings you better coverage of the teams you're passionate about than these guys.
Try some more.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined by the radio voice of the Utah Jazz, David Locke. David, good morning.
Oh, my gosh, a Friday morning. David and Patrick. I mean, this is the culmination of another beautiful, fabulous, incredible week of my life. And it only seems appropriate to do it the day after the NFL draft, where clearly one of you is the number one pick of all time and the other clearly Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, well, I deal with the burden.
Okay, whichever one that might be. How are you guys?
Good.
Great.
I've been watching the NBA playoffs, and I saw somebody say
so
something,
good.
and I thought I have to ask David Locke about that because I think that applies to the Jazz. I think there's a Jazz player who needs to hear this, think about it, and then apply this lesson and learn from someone else's pain. Don't learn from your own pain. Watch other people make mistakes and learn from that. No reason to go down that road yourself. And I am talking about C.J. McCollum's post-game interview after Game 2 when he was asked, were you hunting Jalen Brunson? And he said, what do you think? And the reporter finally said, well, it looked like you were. And McCollum's like, as a matter of fact, I was. The playoffs, you find a matchup, you get an advantage, and you go. And Brunson's undersized, and they think they can beat him. And sure enough, CJ then hits a game-winning shot in Game 3 as well. And you have talked about Keontae George's defensive numbers, worst perimeter defender in the NBA. I expect the Jazz to be in the postseason next year. I really expect him to be in the playoffs proper, not just a play-in game, but in the playoffs. And a 7-game series, man, if you got those kind of numbers, they are going to be hunting you. And it's a terrible feeling. Do you think someone's having that talk with him and pointing it out to him right now? And how much is that going to register with him? And how much do you think he can improve? Or if somehow am I the only one who noticed it? That would seem incredible. That would seem unlikely.
And I'll expand it out even further. Put Lowry in the sentence.
Yeah.
Lowry's not a very good isolation wing defender, right? Like, no, this is where next year's the two-part challenge here for the Jazz as they progress is they have to become much better. Will said it multiple times in the last weeks of the season, much better at containing the basketball. I mean, that counts to Isaiah Collier. If he can shoot well enough on the offensive end to play on defense, that counts to all of them. They have to be just a dramatic increase in performance on the defensive end. The numbers you're commenting on are Taylor Snar's dunks and threes have had Keontae as the worst defender in the NBA 2 years in a row. I don't know if that's true, but you're not that and good, right? Like it might not be the worst. That might be a stretch, but you're not that and good. So, yes, but I also think it applies to Lowry. I think it also applies to, like, Will Hardy's going to have to figure out some scheme things with the amount of size that he has of how is it that we don't get Keontae on an island. And I think Keontae should be better. I'm frankly more worried about Lowry. Like, I think Lowry has some physical limitations on whether in space he actually can defend as a wing three. You know, if we're into the playoffs and it's Walker and it's Jaren and it's Lowry and we're that big – and they're going to pull Lowry out and put him into actions, like, okay, well, how are we getting Jaren, Ace Bailey, and Walker Kessler on the backside to help out and keeping them off the rim and keeping them at 15 to 18 feet? So I think there's a schematic challenge to Will Hardy as well. No, I mean, hey, there was the Jaden McDaniels comment that every single guy in Denver is a bad defender, right? And that they're just attacking. Denver, the Jazz actually, I'm sure somebody else had done it long before, and we opened the broadcast that night talking about the Nuggets were 28th in the league in rim defense. But But the Jazz, I think, had 80 restricted area points against Denver. You know, like Denver just can't stop you from getting to the rim, and then Jokic can't defend the rim. It's a real the Jazz, ironically enough, I think other people had as well. It really exposed that problem at Denver. I actually, looking back at the last 3-4 weeks of the season, and think it's really interesting to look at like teams we played that just kicked the crap out of us, who like saw a crappy team coming in who had no interest in winning and just beat the crap out of us, and then those who played with their food. And those that played with their food are in trouble right now.
That entertained PK. Nice chuckle, PK.
Listening to your, the lockdown stuff you do with the Jazz, you were talking about Dybantsa and potential hole in the game, and I saw you took some blowback. Well, wait a second, man. You've got Ace Bailey as a potential number one option, and their three-point shooting numbers are not that drastically different. Why were you high on one and have concern for the other?
So AJ Dybantsa comes out as a 30, first percentile of catch and shoot players in the NBA, and 40th percentile in college basketball. And the 40th percentile number has been a huge threshold number for players in 7 years worth of data that I've collected. So those players that are under these certain thresholds. Now, let me just be clear on one or two things on AJ. One is that his dribble is shooting off the dribble numbers are pretty good, which gives you some feeling it might not be a problem. And his spot up numbers are okay, but catch and shoot has been the best correlation we have. And if you're in the 40th, here's the numbers. There's been 67 players that have been below the 40th percentile. This is going to get geeky, DJ. You can interrupt me if you want to. And really what happens, I ran all the numbers. AJ's in the 34th percentile. He's the only player in the top 10 other than some Caleb Wilson lack of offensive numbers that hit any red flags. Like I have certain numbers that hit red flags. No one else hit one. That was the only one. Here's the number. Of the 67 players in the 7 years of the database that I have that are below the 40 percentile threshold, 30 of the 67, 45%, have gone on to be 33% or less as three-point shooters. Another 20 have gone between 33 and 35, so that's below league average. So that's 65% are below league average. Check that. That's 75% are below league average. 75% of players that have catch-and-shoot numbers of the level of AJ Dybantsa in college are below average three-point shooters. Only 25% are good, 35 to 38% being good, 16% and very good 9%. The contrast to those players that are above, if someone's above that number, the chance of them becoming a bad shooter is really very limited, and the chance of them becoming a good shooter is pretty limited. So the above 40% group, only 31% of those became bad shooters. So that's a 13% percentage gap. That's a telling statistical find. Only 9% of bad college catch and shoot became very good NBA shooters compared to 19% of those above the 40% group became very good. So it's half as likely that you're going to become a very good or even a good three-point shooter. Okay. I think it's just a concern. It's just a concern. It doesn't mean no. It's getting misinterpreted, but okay, here's the red flag. There's the data that backs up the red flag. Now evaluate. He's not perfect.
Sure.
He's 6'9". His body's great. He goes to the free throw line at an incredible rate, and for a 19-year-old, that usually translates. There's all sorts of awesome things about him. But this is the one that's concerning, and specifically to me, it reeks of Paolo Banchero. And I'm not a fan of Paolo Banchero, but I'm sure AJ plays harder than Paolo Banchero, so it's probably fine.
Suppose you're dominant in other things then, and you don't take as many threes.
Yeah, then that's not the NBA. Who's doing that?
I don't know. DJ was talking about how the game's changing a little bit. I
don't think it is. You got to shoot, man. I thought that what's his name, Nathan Grubler from No Ceilings, who does Locked On NBA Draft for No Ceilings, had a great line the other day. Shooting is now a prerequisite, and the other skills are the differentiator. It used to be that shooting was a differentiator. Shooting is now a prerequisite.
But when you say shooting, you're talking about 3-point shooting.
Well, the ability to shoot at all levels. Like, all right, who's a really great player in the NBA that can't shoot the three?
Rudy Gobert.
We're talking about the number one pick of the draft. Let's make sure we're talking about, right? We're talking about the number one pick of the draft. We're asking for someone who is – our goal of this player is to be a 10-time All-Star, which Banchero may turn out to be, and probably a multiple-time top 10 MVP candidate. Like, that's what we're hoping for, right? So who in the top 20 players in the NBA can't shoot?
Well, probably the worst shooter among elite scorers. He's streaky, and he's great when he's on, but he's up. Maybe Jamal Murray.
Yeah, but he's 38.5%.
He's under 40. Yeah, he's 36 in the
okay,
career.
That's elite.
Small sample in this series.
That's elite. Like, his career number is 38.5. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the chance that AJ Dybantsa, the numbers say there's a real chance. I'm not saying this is a case. I'm just telling you the numbers. Like, we've got to listen to exactly what I'm saying. There's a real chance he's a below 33% three-point shooter.
Most people know that if you said, okay, what's the hole in his game, they would say, well, he's got to become a better three-point shooter. I think even you can go to, 17,000 BYU fans are in there screaming. And when they stop screaming when the game is over, he said, what does he have to improve in the NBA? I think they would say his three-point shooting. And what all these numbers you've given us is that if you're where he is, it's not a slam dunk. The odds are against you. Obviously, some people do it. You've given us those numbers. But it isn't an automatic that he's going to improve there. And most of the best players in the sport do shoot the three pretty well. They do.
Yeah.
So if you can't.
Okay, you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. And just to, for those who want to, you still got to, Anthony Edwards was one of them, by the way. Anthony Edwards was on the wrong side of this. So it can happen. And Anthony Edwards is now one of the elite shooters in the NBA.
Who are the best shooters from three in the NBA?
Depends, are we talking volume or just Luke Kennard,
percentage.
AJ Green, 44%.
Yeah, those guys are role players.
Yeah,
I don't want a role player with the number one pick.
Right, but the best scorer, Anthony Edwards, 38-39%. Jamal Murray, 38-39% for the year. Steph Curry, 40% for the year. Run through the best. Kevin Durant's probably 40% from three. Give me the top 10. Luka's up to 35-36% from three. The best scorers in the NBA are up at 35-36% from three. And really, Donovan Mitchell, 38-39% from three at an incredibly high volume. They're great shooters. The best players in the league are great shooters. Cade Cunningham might not be. Cade Cunningham might be at 33 or 34%. And I bet he might be the exception to the rule this year. I'd have to see what his numbers finished at. But if we go run the top 15 shoot scorers in the league, they're up 35, 36%. The script of a high scorer at 30-31% is a problem. I'm not saying that's going to be. I'm just saying that's got to be a discussion. It's just not a slam dunk.
I think you're ripping the kid because you don't like BYU. That's what you're doing.
Right, 100%.
That is such a PK thing to say. Because a
spreadsheet kicked out a red number. I didn't realize that my whole problem was a negative number. And I hate BYU, but a negative number in my system is red. So all the Utah fans hate me because I'm implying that red in my if a number goes below a threshold, it turns to red. And red is negative, and that's my fault. I clearly hate Utah, too. Yeah.
If you passed on Dybantsa, because all of this is relative, if you passed on Dybantsa, who's the number one pick? Because the other people, there is no perfect player. Everybody coming into the pros has something they've got to improve. I mean, it's Kevin Durant, who everybody knew was awesome, couldn't lift enough weight. So there's always going to be something.
So on Peterson, I think watching him a little bit at Kansas, they had just no space, and it's just hard to tell what he can do if he's playing pick and roll. He just didn't run very many of them, and he obviously didn't play a huge amount. So I would, really have to try to go back and look at some of his high school stuff and then maybe have him in the gym, or, that's hard to do at this point. But I'd have to have an understanding of what you think he can do with the ball in his hands. He's clearly not a point guard. He's a two guard from the little bit I've watched.
Yeah.
But his movement shooting is pretty incredible.
There you go.
He made 2 plays in a game. What was it? It was Kansas, Texas, maybe, or Kansas. Anyway, 2 second jump plays on the rim where he followed up his own misses that were just like astronomical. So I think in space, he's, and he almost never got in transition in Kansas because it was just so clogged. So I think that, you have to figure that out. And then I do think there's a Cameron Boozer argument here. Defensively, certainly, there's 2. So the negative is that he's just so heavy-legged and whether he can move defensively. And ironically, I think he reminds me of Banchero in that sense. So we're just kind of going back to this former number 1 pick. And he's got – I wonder if he could thin back out a little bit. Like, I just don't know that I think that's his playing weight. In college, you're bigger and stronger and you're a beast. And I don't know – but his body might not. And then maybe he's a mobility problem, and he's certainly not going to be a rim defender. So he's in the ilk of Sabonis and Şengün and these kind of players. The one thing that's really different about him is he can really shoot. And so, like, Sabonis and Şengün have been these hubs until recently when Şengün has decided he doesn't pass anymore because he doesn't like burner count. And so, therefore, he's forgotten that he once was a passer. But if you kind of go to Sabonis and Şengün prior to the second half of the season, they were able to play this offensive hub role, poor-man Jokic, but neither of them could really shoot it. What happens if you have Cameron Boozer playing this offensive hub role both inside and outside the three-point line, and he can shoot? Like, I really think that's a fabulously interesting player that can transform who you are offensively. Defensively, you got to figure it out, right? Same kind of conversation that there is possibly this glaring weakness, and we just opened this conversation about if you can't defend in space, you're going to be pulled out to the middle of the floor in the playoffs. And Boozer feels like that could be the case for him. But I do think there's a real chance that he could be one of the most influential offensive players in the league.
I don't know that he could run the offense, and maybe he could, but I don't know that he could do that outside the three-point line. Now you're starting to talk Jokic territory,
Yeah.
But definitely.
I'm being careful to not use that name, but yes, you're correct.
But definitely at the high post in that 15, 17, 18-foot range, I think he's a terror. I think that's the reason everyone's had him a slam dunk top 3 pick, because when he gets the ball in that range, he can shoot it, he can pass it, he can put it on the floor and beat to the hoop and get a layup or a dunk. He is a terror. And so if he'd grown up 30 or 40 years ago when people were running high post offenses, oh my gosh, I mean, holy cow, that'd be awesome. And maybe he will be able to step out to the three-point. Now we're back to, again, with Dybantsa, you got to project a little bit, and that's why all these front office type and all these scouts get paid, is to figure that stuff out, because that's a tough call. And it's like you said with Peterson, there's stuff you don't have to do in college. You just don't have to run an offense that far from the hoop.
Right. The league is moving a little bit away from pick and roll, not a ton, but not as much as people want to make it seem. Like, in other words, like, yes, we've reduced the amount of pick and roll we're running, and we're still running at 50 to 60% of our plays instead of 75%. So, like, Will Hardy kind of with the off-ball action and the handoff action Mike Brown ran with the Sacramento and the Denver's run with Adelman, I do think there's more. We saw it with Nurkic, right? Like, there's more activity in this game right now where you're trying to play 5 out, or in this case with Boozer, I don't know what position he plays, in which you're playing with that hub of an offensive player, maybe in or outside the three-point line. So I think that high post offense is actually coming back a little bit.
All right, David, we got to run. We're late to break, as always, and I know how you hate that.
Here's
but,
a new
in this
one,
era,
by the
with
way.
so much stuff is streamed and podcast, it doesn't matter as much anymore. I don't feel as bad.
I think you're right. By the way, I just want to share, this is a new experience for the three of us. I'm not at home. I'm sitting somewhere else, and a bobcat just strolled across the bushes out a little bit from me as we were just holding the last part of this conversation. It's better than a rattlesnake, but it's
You gotta love
great.
Arizona. We got bobcats down there.
That's right. When are you coming out, PK?
Soon, my man. Very soon.
Okay. Mr. Irrelevant, number 1 pick. You guys are the greatest. I appreciate you. You do amazing work. Congratulations to the new lineup over there, to the great Timmy Lacombe, who has some origin moments with the early moments of sports radio in Utah. And to have him in that slot now is great. And the rise to Benny Anderson and Jake Scott to Afternoon Drive, pretty incredible. So congratulations to everyone.
All right. Thanks, David. We'll talk to you. DJ and PK, we're going to take a break. Pablo Mastroeni is about 10 minutes away. Stay with us right here on The Zone.